You know, it says a lot about the game when you're only able to +10 a Demote after you get 30 plus copies of a 5-star, whether that's 30 plus Diamonds for a +10 Lapis, or whatever amount of pulls this is for a character I can't really pronounce for 11 copies of Will. Yeah, that's something, I guess. And to be fair, they are worth a lot more. But also, why is it so hard to get Demotes? Rarity. I love and hate rarity, and it is a system in pretty much every single gacha. It's usually just there to denote what is and isn't stronger than the rest of the game, and it's kind of a scam, unlike today's sponsor. Did you like that transition too? Ooh, that was good, wasn't it?
We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Well, I sure do. And what a good time to have one thanks to today's sponsor, Austin Remote. Austin Remote allows you to control your PC and play PC games remotely from your own mobile device.
Remote Desktop is a fast, stable, and reliable way to remotely access your PC through something like a phone, a tablet, or another PC, and this can be used to control or troubleshoot the computers in question through your device.
It's available on Windows, iOS, and Android, and it's free. Actually, well, there is one barrier of entry. You gotta have a phone. That being said, the program is free, and the coolest part about it is that it works both ways. It's rather flexible in that regard and makes it much more vastly appealing. They also have paid options if you do want to shell out a few bucks for additional features. The benefit to paying a bit of money for the extended program is that you can get stuff like remote control for Android devices, and you can enjoy more stable and faster connections in general. Likewise, there's a smart power plug which you can actually get as an extension for the program, so you don't necessarily need to keep your computer on all the time. You can still do remote access through your phone as a result of it. Just one tap to wake it up, one tap to shut it down, and put it on your phone and you're good to go. However, if you would rather try it out first, they have the free option, so you may as well give it a shot. Thanks to Austin Remote for sponsoring the video.
Is scam the right word? Probably not. But I don't understand why it's easier to get a 5-star like that than any sort of specific Demote. Before all the math comes into the comment section, I'm just going to tell you right now, you're probably right, but I don't do math because I'm a Fae player. I just see big numbers and go, haha, pretty big numbers, the end. So you can shove your mathematics. Well, I don't really care. But all jokes aside, I don't really understand why it's difficult to get a lot of copies of a Demote when in a lot of scenarios, they're just going to be worse than whatever is in the 5-star pool. Granted, it will ultimately depend on everybody's experiences, but when the percentage chance to get a Demote is yay high and there's a lot of Demotes in that pool, it kind of becomes a lot more difficult to snipe specific colors, especially if you end up getting multiple copies of the same character that you didn't really want, but also never really made sense why it's hard to get some copies of a unit over another, especially since they're a lot more difficult to build comparatively to a 5-star. Every 5-star nowadays just gets a PRF, a brand new kit that is pretty optimal out of the gate in most scenarios. The last time we didn't get a PRF on a 5-star was from Arthur, you know, the FE4 one, the one nobody really cares for or remembers, and Winter Arthur from that one Winter banner. Oh. Regardless, the reason why a lot of these units don't really need merges is because they generally hinge on their PRF, which already grants them a bajillion, million, quadrillion stats, which basically makes up for their BST. And by makes up, I mean they already have an absurd amount of BST, whether they get 50 bajillion more in their weapon. But even outside of the ones that don't really have a PRF that they could use, they always have arcanes, and a lot of the game also hinges on skills, so you don't really have to worry about it as much if you don't really have the latest and greatest PRF. You just need all the latest and greatest fodder. That being said, the Demote pool doesn't necessarily follow that rule because it's comprised of pretty much every single book Demote possible that isn't a seasonal or some other form of limited, but I think it's only seasonal. It's got all the units from every single book. Some bad, others bad. There are some good ones though. That being said, while your chances of getting a Demote is far easier than getting any sort of 5-star because, whoa, numbers say so, the ones that you do get are incredibly random at times, and if you wanted to build a specific one that was in the Demote pool, sometimes the issue just lies with resources, whether that's flowers, skills you can pretty much make up in pretty much any other facet because they're always dropping new stuff all the time, but really the big thing is definitely going to come from whatever potential weapon they may need to get, whether that's an arcane or some seasonal weapon, and really the flowers especially because unlike a lot of the modern ones that have pretty much min-max stat lines and a lot more modern BST, a lot of the older ones, Gen 1, 2, 3, and 4, sometimes even Gen 5, don't really have as much BST, so they have to make up for it through flowers, which is a whole different issue on its own. But that's not really the point. It takes so many more resources to get them going, and they're still going to be weaker than any other 5-star in the regular or seasonal pool. So it doesn't really make any sense that it takes so much effort to try and get 11 copies of them. And I would argue they hinge more on merges than any of the other ones, just because they don't have the PRF to make up for it. And even for the modern ones, it's still a bloated pool with all sorts of demotes, so even trying to get specific copies of a unit is going to be relatively difficult in its own right. That's why I think being a Grail unit is probably the best outcome for pretty much anything. They usually have easy access. You can get whatever merges you want. The only thing you need is Grails, but if you're playing the game, they just naturally accumulate as is. But that being said, a lot of favorites are in the regular pool, so it's still incentivized to go and pull for them at times. And even though you could still stumble upon them over the course of X amount of time, it could easily range between a few months or like a few years. And that's all dependent on whether or not you're even able to get lucky with all these demotes. Which is why I do think they should try and implement a change that makes it so you can get specific demotes in a much more easy facet. They do have the monthly codes, which is helpful at times because you could grab specific demotes, some of them also being relatively modern. That being said, it's a bit more drip fed than anything else. We also do get a bunch of free summons on random banners, so even on banners that you don't really plan to summon on, you can still at least get one free copy of whatever may show up, which is still nice on its own. But again, a lot of it does happen to just be through drip feeding, and even in a scenario where it may just be that, I do think there are more additional ways to incentivize people summoning on banners, especially if it's just trying to get specific demotes, because there are a lot of popular characters in that pool. But whether or not they want to do it, I couldn't tell you. I do have a few ideas though. Are they good? Maybe. Idea number 1, increase the demo appearance based on the game and banner. So for example, let's say there's a brand new engage banner. You have an extra % chance, whatever amount they decide to do, to get a demo from that game itself. So you have more of a chance to get somebody like Lapis and somebody like Guy or whatever the case may be. I think especially for fans of specific games, it's a lot more incentivizing to pull on a lot of these banners, especially since they can have more of a chance to get these demotes. Obviously, it's not completely foolproof because at the end of the day, it's still gacha. I think even that extra incentive can still go a long way for a lot of people. They could also bring back 4-star focus banners, but I don't actually think there's an actual incentive for that because it's throwing orbs for a lot of mediocre units that just aren't going to be as good as the 5-star ones. So I don't think most people are really going to pull on those, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly why they got rid of them. Still an idea regardless. They could also do demote tickets that only give demotes, but I also don't know if they want to keep adding currency to the game because there's so much that you already have to keep track of. I mostly like idea number 1 because it's much more simplistic and it's probably easier to implement than pretty much everything else there. But otherwise, I have no idea what else they could do. I do think being a demote does have its perks because it is a lot more cost effective, but it also has its own issues in terms of cost because you still have to get all these resources to do XYZ. They're still not going to be as competitive with a lot of the other units, but even that aside, I never understood why it's harder to get specific demotes than it is to just get a regular 5-star. And I know the math nerds are going to be in the comment section telling me like, oh, actually it's this and that, but I don't know. Something. In conclusion, gacha sucks, but we like Fire Emblem, or we don't. I would like extra Etsy copies because I only got one in the span of 9 months. Please and thank you.